Hello and welcome to All About Billings. We are a show dedicated to discovering the people that make Billings a great place to work and live. We will interview local business people, entrepreneurs, community leaders, artists, and entertainers, and learn from their successes, their failures, and their connection to Billings. I'm your host, Nancy Brooke, broker and owner at Billings Best Real Estate. And today, it is my honor to have as my guest, DeeDe Baker. Now, DeeDe is the founder and director of Dog Tag Buddies, which we'll hear about in just a little bit. And she started this organization in 2015 after seeing the relief that dogs brought her husband when he returned from Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2005. So let's welcome DeeDe to the show.
Thank you.
Hi, nice to have you here today.
Thank you.
Well, the first thing of course, people are probably curious about, obviously we know it's related to dogs and it's related to veterans. So tell us a little bit about Dog Tag Buddies.
So Dog Tag Buddies is a local organization born and bred here in Billings. I created this organization after my husband came home from Iraq, started seeing what the dogs did for him, and what started out as a casual conversation around our kitchen table turned into what we do today. And what we do is we pair veterans with specifically bred dogs and train the veteran and the dog so that the dog can become a service dog to meet their needs. And what we're doing is it's a therapeutic integrative program. We're working with the veteran and the dog for a period of 2 years. We teach the dog to help the veteran gain some social mobility. That's kind of it in a nutshell.
So talk a little bit about what social mobility means, because that's a new term to me. I mean, I've heard of emotional support dogs.
Yep, nope.
And these are along that line.
Yep, so these are service dogs that are specifically trained to mitigate the signs and symptoms of disabilities, as well as provide a task that the veteran can't do for themselves. So one of the challenges when we talk about PTSD and traumatic brain injuries, which is the primary focus of our organization, we are talking about veterans who have gone through a lot, who for a lot of them have learned the way to cope is to isolate. They isolate themselves, they push people away. Going out in public can be a lot. Even getting behind the wheel to drive can be a challenge. And so what we do is we work with these veterans to find out what their challenges are on a day-to-day basis, and then we train the dog to help them basically recognize that something is going on. And what I tell my veterans is that the service dog is not the magic pill. The service dog is trained to let them know something is going on, but we have to teach the veteran how to be self-aware, recognize that the dog is telling them something, and then what steps do they need to take to keep moving forward? Because their initial response is fight or flight. And what we want them to do is go from fight, flight, or freeze to executive thinking, to be able to go, oh, my dog just told me something. The dog is not going to tell you you're having a panic attack or an anxiety attack. The dog is going to go, hey, hey, and they're going to bump you. That's their alert. It's up to the individual to then take stock of what's going on. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? And what tools do I have in place that can help me navigate this?
So what would be an example of something that the dog would alert? So this is Meatball.
This is Meatball, and Meatball is a
Meatball's
young dog in training. And she's like, this is really weird. Good girl. So the dogs will alert to, I call it the thing before the thing before the thing. So before someone has a full-blown panic attack, I want the dog to start recognizing what does that look like. And for a lot of my veterans, it'll be bouncing. They'll bounce a leg. They'll fidget. They'll do something physical that we can teach the dog to recognize, and then the dog will alert them. We teach the dog how to nudge them with their nose. When the dog nudges them, then it's up, Meatball. She's like, this looks like a good place to lay down. Thank you. She's like, this is weird. Thank you. We're teaching the veteran to recognize that the dog is telling them something, and then we teach them new strategies to deal with that.
And so they don't necessarily look for the triggering event. They look for what's
the person doing.
Yeah, the initial, I don't know, precursor to,
yes.
to something.
It's what's the thing before the thing before the thing.
Yeah.
So before you have a full-blown panic attack,
right,
things happen leading up to that. What is the soonest we can start recognizing that you're about to have a panic attack that we can teach the dog to cue on? Once the dog recognizes that and the dog starts alerting, going, hey, it's up to that individual to realize that my dog just told me something's going on. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What do I need to do? Do I need to take 5 deep breaths? Do I need to ground myself? Sometimes it's as simple as just reaching down and petting the dog's head. Sometimes it's a matter of stepping back and going, okay, I need to take 5 deep breaths, and then we can continue. We're not teaching our veterans how to continue with the isolation or how to run away from events. We're teaching them how to keep moving forward. And we look at it as a goals-based program, because I want these veterans, I want to know, first of all, why a service dog? They're a very unique piece of medical equipment. So why a service dog? And for a lot of people, it's like, I've tried a lot of other things. And for our veterans, we're not their first choice. We're not their second. We're probably not even their third or fourth. We may be their 5th or 6th. Down, thank you. And they haven't had successes. As we know, they come back, they get put on a lot of medications. They do counseling. A lot of times they'll self-medicate. They'll make poor life choices. And it can impact their families.
Sure.
And so as we start talking to these veterans, I want to know why a service dog, and then I want to know what goals do you want to achieve having a service dog by your side? What does that look like for you as a veteran? I have a veteran who his goals were, I want to be able to go to my kids' events. That's a pretty big goal, and that's a pretty important goal, because as our children grow, we know they get more involved, and then once they grow up and go away, we lose a lot of that opportunity, and he didn't want to miss that. And he was right on the line of not being able to build these new relationships with his kids. Had he not had this dog, he might not have. And so knowing what that veteran is hoping to achieve, in their day-to-day life. Again, the dog's not the magic pill. The dog is not going to fix anything. The dog is going to be taught to recognize that something's happening, but we have to go a step further, and we really have to develop those tools and those skills for the veterans so that they can recognize, acknowledge, and then deal with it appropriately.
So you said there's 2 years of training with the dogs. And so what does that whole process look like? Is the vet involved with the training of the dogs?
Absolutely.
So it takes a couple of years for them even to get the dog in really ready state.
Yep. Like I said, Meatball's a pretty young dog. She's only been in training for a few months. The veterans and the dog, we're trying to do so much more than just train a dog to be a service dog. The dogs are the easy part. It's the other end of the leash that we're concerned about. How do we give them the tools and the strategies? And when we look at Montana and we look at the statistics, death by suicide is incredibly high. We've been in the top 5 for the last 40 years. For our veteran populations, it's almost twice the national average. So when we pair them with these dogs and they go through the training, they do a basic obedience class. They don't even get a service dog in training vest. They're just learning the basic skills, and they're learning how to build a new relationship. And their relationship is with the dog. And so teaching them how to build that relationship with the dog, that actually segues into other areas of their lives. Because they learn training a dog's hard. You have to be patient, you have to be kind, you have to be consistent. You have to do these things in order to get the dog where they need to be. And as they start training with the dog, a lot of those skills they can segue into building or rebuilding relationships with their families. As a result of working with the dog, they can become better spouses, better parents, better employees, better community members. So it has this huge ripple effect. But taking the dog and the veteran through the program together as a team is about them building that relationship and learning to understand each other. And giving them a sense of accomplishment, a sense of, I now have something by my side that doesn't judge me.
Right.
Making sure that they know and understand that, we're here to support them. And that 2-year training process it's as much about the dog as it is about the veteran. The dog has to learn a set number of skills and tasks to assist the veteran. But again, if I don't teach the veteran how to utilize their medical equipment, we're not doing any good.
So how long or how many people at one time are going through this program? I suppose it's different facets, right? Some are just new, some have been in it for a year.
So we have a rolling enrollment program. Right now we have 32 veterans in training across the state at different stages. We have 5 more veterans that are about to come on board. And so we do very small classes, and we do it intentionally. By design, we are only doing veterans in these classes, and we're making them small for a couple of different reasons. Again, we're dealing with PTSD, we're dealing with traumatic brain injuries. There's a lot that goes into making sure that we're providing them the tools and the strategies that they need to learn. If you have too big of a class, it's too chaotic. 3 to 4 is a pretty good number. You get many more than that and it does get chaotic because you've got 3 to 4 veterans with different needs. You've got 3 to 4 dogs, you've got a trainer or two, you've got other dogs. So trying to keep that to a minimum is really important. But the other thing that I really wanted to do was give these veterans an opportunity to create a space where they can build some new connections.
Right.
And they start building connections with these other veterans.
Sure.
And they do it over a shared experience. It's kind of like when you go to basic training. You go to basic training knowing nobody. You get thrown in with a group of mismatched people and you build relationships. And it's kind of the same thing with us, helping them, again, build those new relationships.
Yeah. So let's take a step back and just talk about how you decided to start this organization, because it seems like you had a personal experience with your husband coming back from Iraq, and he obviously had some things to deal with as he got integrated back into family, community, and all that. So how did this all start for you?
So my husband spent 21 years in the Montana National Guard. He was deployed to Iraq in 2004 and 2005. He actually came back on Veterans Day 2005, ended his tour of duty that day when they landed in Bozeman. And the first year was really hard because there are things we weren't prepared for. I mean, he'd been in the National Guard for almost 21 years by that time. We had the weekends, we had the 2 to 3 weeks of training. We had never gone through a deployment like this. And there were a lot of things that led up to that, the phone calls, the IED explosions, the things that happened, but every time it was like, we're fine, everything's fine. Well, it's fine until it's not. And learning how to navigate PTSD and a traumatic brain injury is a challenge, because you see this person in front of you, but you don't, because they're not the same. The things that used to be just commonplace become triggers. Even getting in the car to drive becomes a trigger. The things that your life was built around changes. And for us, watching that change was hard. It was a learning experience for both of us, and we did a lot of things to try to figure out how to navigate it. And for him, the one thing that I noticed was we had dogs. We've always had dogs. He'd come in from out in his garage, and he would sit down on the floor, and the dogs would get in his lap, and you could just watch, when somebody's so stressed out and anxious and all these things are happening, and then you just watch them go. It was palpable. You could feel it. And so I kept watching that, and over a period of time, I finally said, hey, I don't know if you recognize this, but this is what I'm seeing. And he goes, yeah, it's true. He said, the dogs just kind of calmed me down. And the conversation was more, initially when we started this, we were looking at, there's some really cool dogs that are ending up in the shelters. Let's just help veterans find a dog and take them through obedience training so they have a well-behaved pet. I had another career. I'd worked for the state of Montana and was doing that at the time. Was not a dog trainer. Have always had dogs, knew just enough to be dangerous, but was not a dog trainer. So this was not the path that I ever thought I'd be on. I always tell people it's the dream I never knew I had. And the trajectory changed so much that as we started building this, we started realizing how much more these veterans needed. And as we started learning more and trying to build it out, I actually reached out to other organizations across the country that were doing, PTSD service dogs is a relatively new thing. Thank you, Meatball. They started really evolving about 2009, 2010. So it is a new treatment modality. Thank you. So there were organizations doing it, and nobody would talk to me. The one organization that did talk to me said, "You're not a dog trainer, take your toys and go home." I'm like, wait a minute, I can learn how to train dogs. That's,
Sure.
And so I kind of made that my mission, was to learn everything I could learn about training service dogs and what does a program need to look like. And so we started building it from the ground up. Like I said, watching my husband and his experiences, and then realizing that there was a need. And Montana's such a large state, and we're so diverse, but we're also highly, highly patriotic. 1 in 10 people is a veteran in the state of Montana.
Wow.
And when you look at that 1 in 10, 80% of those are combat veterans. And while we might not have a large population per capita, we have one of the highest per capita demographics of service.
Right. Well, I read somewhere in your literature that we're the 3rd highest per capita for veterans in the state.
Yep, and that fluctuates and change as the demographics get updated. But regardless, we have a lot of veterans in our state. We have a lot of land. We have almost 148,000 square miles in the state of Montana, and average about 7 people per square mile. That's a lot of land. And so for us, what we looked at was, how do we do this in a way that is meaningful for the veterans? So I actually have trainers located throughout the state so that veterans don't have to travel to Billings to participate. And the reason we did that was we wanted to remove barriers. In a lot of communities, there are no services. We have tons of little tiny towns in the state of Montana, and our veterans kind of gravitate to that just by virtue of who they are and what they've done. And so building a program where we knew we could do better was really important to me. How do we remove those barriers? How do we help these families? How do we help our veterans? And so building it out to include other areas of the state of Montana was a big deal to us.
And so you had this idea and you decided, yeah, this would be a good thing. And then how did you get to where you are now, though? Because obviously, I mean, you have to hire trainers. You have expenses,
we
right?
do. We do.
And now you're doing this full time. So obviously, that's a big commitment.
I learned how to
on your
write
part.
grants.
Right.
When we started this, like I said, I didn't know I would be doing this
Right.
when we started. We just thought we were going to help veterans find pets. When we started talking about how important a dog would be to a veteran in a lot of different ways, that was something that building it out was really important. Having trainers, because training a service dog is not the same as training a pet. And I know you look at all these websites, you look at all these people that say, oh, I can train a service dog. We've done hundreds of hours of training. We've gone to schools, we've done all kinds of things to learn how to train service dogs properly, because they're not a pet. They're considered durable medical equipment. They have to have a different skill set. And it takes a pretty special dog, and it takes a pretty special trainer in my world, because I keep telling my trainers that we're people trainers, we're not dog trainers, because of how we use our training. It's a community training model, which for me was really important, because again, that connectivity of bringing these veterans in, giving them a purpose, and helping them build on something that I knew they could do. This is a challenge, it's a lot of work, but you can do it. It's a new mission. There's a lot of organizations that will do a breeding program, fully train the dogs, the veterans have to apply, and then they come, they show up, they say, okay, here's your dog. And then they teach them how to use the dog in a short time period, anywhere from 2 to 5 weeks. I wanted more, and I wanted more for our veterans. I wanted them to know that this isn't just here's your dog, go home and carry on.
Right.
I wanted to really create a supportive therapeutic program that is really beneficial to them. And so...
And it gives them a purpose to
Yes.
having to meet with
Yes.
people, even if
Yes.
they
Doing
really
things that
don't
are-
want to.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's hard, it's uncomfortable, and we make them do uncomfortable things, because we do hundreds of hours of work out in the community. You're just getting squirrely. We take them out to places that are really hard. Like every year we take them to the fair. And as soon as we say we're going to the fair next week, they're like, I think I'm going to be sick. No, I don't think I'm going to be able to make it. And we're like, you will be there. Because here's the deal. This is real life. We have to teach you and your dog how to navigate these spaces and these places in a meaningful way. And if I never take you out to them and I never expose you to them, you're never going to learn. The dog is never going to learn, because dogs have to do the hundreds of repetitions of the same thing to get really good at it. And so taking them out in public is a really important piece, because where do our veterans live? They go to the VA, they go to the grocery store, they may be going to the schools for games, they may be their kids might want to go to the fair. And we've actually had veterans that have done that and gone through it and said, I now think I can take my kids to the fair. I didn't think I could do this. So it's about a sense of empowerment for them as well. Looking at it from my perspective, this is my way to get to honor my husband's service. It's my way to get to honor our love of dogs, and it's my way of getting to give back in a meaningful way. Helping other veterans and their families, because we live this experience every single day. Most dog trainers that have come in to train service dogs are doing it because a veteran showed up with a dog and said, I need you to train this dog to be a service dog. I came at it from a different aspect and the perspective of, I see what this does day in and day out. I see what it looks like and feels like to live with somebody with PTSD. And trying to give them that sense of you can gain your life back. A sense of independence, that social mobility that we kind of talked about in the beginning, helping them learn that, you can go to your kids' basketball games. You can go to the Metro and watch them participate. You can go to the grocery store and get your gallon of milk. And we spend a ton of time teaching them how to do that. And at the end of the program, it's when people walk away, I want them to say, that's the coolest thing I never knew I needed.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
That's...
So what were the biggest obstacles you had to overcome?
Bias and learning how to run a nonprofit. I worked for the state of Montana for 22 years, so I knew public service. It's always kind of been in my blood, I guess, but learning how to run a nonprofit and all the things that go along with it. And you talked about hiring the right people, hiring dog trainers who could actually people train, having really good staff who understand the mission and are committed to the mission, learning how to write grants. And we're in a very unique niche, so it costs us about between $25,000 and $30,000 for a 2-year training process with these guys. Everything we do is at no cost to our veterans. So we do a ton of fundraising and we do a lot of grant writing. And so I've had to learn how to write grants. But the bias, I think, was the hardest thing. You know, people telling me, oh, you can't do that. You're not a dog trainer. People saying, you know, we're in Montana, that's not really a thing. And, you know, I think a lot of imposter syndrome on my part.
Sure,
you know,
like what am I doing?
Yes.
I don't know anything about this.
Yeah, kind of getting in my own way sometimes and like, am I really doing the right thing? But one of the things that we've learned over the last couple of years is how innovative and creative we are. And, you know, we're looking at changing the landscape of how people view veterans with service dogs. We're looking at changing the tools and the strategies that we use to help our veterans. We're also looking at, you know, becoming a leader in, you know, some of the ways that different service dog organizations can learn skills to work with these guys and work with the dogs and the veterans in a meaningful way. The community model, to me, you know, there's not a right way or a wrong way, but I think bringing these veterans in and, like you said, giving them a sense of purpose, giving them a new mission is so important. And they walked away from the military, they had all that structure, they knew what they needed to do, and they get lost. They get lost when they come home. They get lost in the VA, all of the things that they have to do. They get lost in the real world and how do I fit in? And we're trying to change that. For me, you know, looking at it from the aspect of what we do is important and what we do is meaningful. And I can tell you that all day, but it doesn't matter. What matters is what do my veterans say, you know, when they're coming into this program. And we're not the right fit for everybody. When you look at what we do and how we do it, we take what we do pretty seriously. Veterans have to be physically, mentally, and emotionally ready for this because it is a 2-year training process, and we're teaching them to train the dog. So there's a huge commitment to them. While we don't charge them and everything we do is at no cost, their cost is the buy-in and the work that they put in over that 2-year time period.
Sure, it's a lot of time because not only do they have to go to the class every so often, but they have to do it at home.
Yeah, they have to come to class once a week.
Okay.
They have to work with their dog every day.
Right.
Because your dog, again, we talked about lots of repetitions. They have to do the same thing over and over and over again in different places to build that muscle memory, and it's the same with the veterans. So we spend a lot of time really focusing on how do we make this be the best program we can.
And how do you find the dogs? How do you find a dog that's a good fit? Obviously, there's a lot of dogs that need homes, but
we evaluate every dog that we consider bringing into our program. We're looking for, I say no way more than I say yes. Everybody, you know, you see a lot of dogs out in public and people want to pick these weird breeds to train. And the Americans with Disabilities Act doesn't limit breeds.
Right.
But let's be honest, we all know that there are certain breeds that there is no way I would consider training to be a service dog.
Like maybe a French Bulldog wouldn't be the best breed,
no.
as an example. A Chihuahua maybe, you know.
No, I actually, size matters. Like when I look at my veterans, I like a dog that's between about 40 and 60 pounds because part of the therapy is they're grounding themselves. So it might be just touching their dog's head. And if the dog is too small, it's really hard. And because they're training them, it's really hard if you have to bend down, and most of my veterans have physical challenges too, so we have to take that into consideration. So I don't want them to have to bend too far to reward when they're training. The little dogs, I've trained one little dog that was less than 10 pounds, and she's a rock star. I don't make it a practice.
Sure.
Little dogs are just really hard to train. When it comes to being service dogs, we're looking for specific things, and we have a role for on the floor. So we have to evaluate these dogs for temperament and behaviors. I want to see certain things in these dogs. Like I said, I say no way more than I say yes, so little dogs are pretty much off the table unless there's something really unique about them. Mid-sized dogs, I'm looking at breed. What was this dog bred to do? Because at the end of the day, I can't train genetics out of a dog.
Right.
If I have a dog that was bred to herd or chase or sight hounds are a good example. They see and they want to chase. You can't train that out of them.
Right.
You can manage it.
Or like a greyhound, they want to run. I mean, that's kind of their thing.
Yeah, and again, that whole, what was the dog bred to do? I don't want a dog that I don't want a breed that has a tendency to be guardy. We get these dogs fairly young, and what people don't realize is that a dog, as they mature, they start hitting sexual maturity, which regardless of spay or neuter, they hit 2, 2.5, 3 years old, depending on the breed. That's what the dog is really going to become. So if it's genetically in them to be guardy or territorial, that comes around and you start seeing it, and you can't train that out. That goes against what a service dog needs to do.
Sure.
These dogs are not there to guard or protect. These dogs are there to go through life beside their veteran and help them make it through the day. Not there to protect them and keep people away from them. And so we have to be really cognizant of those things. The flat-faced dogs, again, we're in Montana. They can't regulate hot and cold. So I've had people, can I train a bulldog? No. Any of the flat-faced dogs is a hard no. So we look at them, we evaluate them. We've got a specific evaluation we use, run them through a series of tests to see how do they react to it. Because I also need a dog, like everybody thinks all labs are going to be good service dogs, and they're not. Most of them are what we refer to as high drive, which means they want to go, 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 go. I need a dog that has an off switch that can just relax.
Sure.
So
it takes a unique set of qualities for a dog.
Yes.
Yeah.
And making sure that we're really looking at those. And we've even evaluated dogs that have scored out really high on our evaluation at a young age, and by a year we start seeing things and we're like, that dog's not going to be a good service dog. So we're always evaluating throughout the entire training process.
And it might be a great dog, but just not great for service.
Yes.
And they might be obedient. You might be have a really wonderful family pet.
Yep, and looking at it from that perspective of, it doesn't make the dog a bad dog. It's just like, you can have 5 children, and are all 5 of them going to be brain surgeons? Probably not.
Right.
When we're looking at service dogs and we're looking at the skill set, just because a service dog it's not in their career path, there's other things they can do. They can be a great pet. Maybe they're a good sport dog. Maybe they're going to be really good as a therapy dog.
Right.
It's just that they're clearly telling us, this is really hard for me. I don't think I can be a good service dog.
Yeah. Well, so tell us how people can find out more about your organization, because it sounds like it's grassroots. You're here locally.
Yep.
And you've put dozens of veterans through this program at this point. So if people want to get involved, what should they do?
So we, like I said, we run on grants and donations. This year's been really hard with it being a political year, and everybody's giving their money to politicians. So we do have an online donation process that people can check out our website. We have
and what's the website?
dogtagbuddies.org.
Okay.
And if they want to volunteer, we have minimal volunteer opportunities, but we are looking for puppy raisers, which is that's a hard job as well, but we really would like to get the community more involved with the puppy raising.
And what about if a vet is interested to find out more?
Absolutely. So our application is all online, but we're also available to answer questions. So all of our contact information is at our website, dogtagbuddies.org. The application is there. If veterans are interested or a family member might want to know more, they can certainly give us a call at our office.
Okay, wonderful. Well, it has been a great experience having you and Meatball here today. Meatball's finally calmed down. Yeah, I was very excited to be on the show. And everybody, we hope you enjoyed today's show and hope to see you next time on All About Billings.